This is Miss Goodale, and today I'm going to be talking about comparing and ordering fractions and decimals. To start out with, I want to review just comparing fractions to fractions. So if I start out with the example 5 2/3, 6 1/5, and 5 2/5. Oops. The first thing that I would do is look at the whole number with my fractions. I know that my 6 is bigger than my 5s, so that's going to be the largest number. And let's go from least to greatest. So these are my numbers that I start with. I know my greatest is 6 1/5, so that's going to be my last one. And then I just have to compare my 5 2/5 and 5 2/3. In order to compare them, I need to look at the fraction part. They're both going to have the same whole number, so in order to make them comparable, I need to make the denominator the same. So I'm going to use equivalent fractions to do that. And that means my 2/3 and my 2/5 I can make into 15ths because 3 and 5 both go into 15. So I can take 3 times 5 to get 15. That means I also take my 2 times 5 to get 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 3 is 6. So now we have 5 2/3 is 10/15. So 5 and 10/15. We have 5 6/15. And so we know 6/15 is less than 10/15. So my 5 2/5, this one is the smallest. And then my next one is this one, 5 and 10. Oops. I'm going to rewrite it as the original. So it's 5 2/3 actually. I wrote the converted version up above as a reference, but whenever you answer, I would like you to have your answer as the original fractions. Oops, that is thirds. Another way you can look at it is without converting, you can see that the top number is the same. And if I cut it into 3 pieces as compared to 5 pieces, my 5 pieces are going to be smaller. So that would be another way to look at it. So there's a couple of ways you could look at those. Let me do another example. 2 3/5, 4 1/5, 2 4/5. Now this one is pretty simple because all the denominators are the same. We just have to look at the whole number first. We know our 4 is our biggest, so that's going to be last. And then we have to compare the other ones that have a whole number of 2. So 3/5 and 4/5, I know that 3 is less than 4, so we have 2 3/5, 2 4/5, and then 4 1/5. And then we have another example. 6 2/3, 6 3/5, and 6 1/2. Now this one, all the denominators are the same, or are different. The whole numbers are the same, so we have to compare the fractions. So we have to make them into something with the same denominator. 3, 5, and 2, the smallest number that they both have in common is 30. I can make 2/3 into something over 30. I can make 3/5 into something over 30. And I can make 1/2 into something over 30. So in order to do that, remember I use multiplication to make equivalent fractions. 3 times 10 is 30. That means I take 2 times 10, which is 20. 5 times 6, that means I take 3 times 6, which is 18. 2 times 15, that means I take 1 times 15. Okay, so now I have my numbers as reference points. So this one is 6 20/30. This is 6 18/30, and this is 6 15/30. So if I look at my fraction, because my whole numbers are all the same, my smallest fraction is 15/30. And I remember I'm going to go ahead and write these as the original fraction. So I have 6 1/2 is my smallest one. Then my next is this one, 18, which is 6 3/5, 6 3/5. And then my last one is 6 2/3. So when doing this, a couple of things to remember is be sure to compare your whole numbers first. Be sure to write your answers as they originally started out. And don't forget to make sure that they are comparable. Now let's go over decimals and just comparing decimals to decimals. So if I have 1 23/100, 1 32/100, and 1 2/10. The first thing I look at is the first digit. I go from left to right. The ones are all the same. Then I go to the next digit. My next digit is a 2, a 3, and a 2. So these two are the two smallest. Now I look at the next digit. This one's got a 3. This one doesn't have anything. So that's like an imaginary 0. So the smallest would actually be my 1 2/10. And then my next smallest would be 1 23/100. And then my largest would be 1 32/100. Another example, 2 36/100, 2 364 thousandths, and 3 24/100. So to compare those, I start again from left to right. My 2's are the smallest. Now I have 3 is the same, 6 is the same. Instead of 4, I don't have anything here, so it's like 360. So this one's going to be the smallest. So my smallest is 2 36/100. And then my next smallest